So I would personally say this is a very rare moment for me to actually play something that is not simulator related or even brain rot related. I have been silently waiting for this game called Pixel Quest, which is now released. However, I do have to give you, a lot of you players out there, a huge forewarning. Developers are currently still working on some bugs, so some of the mechanics may or may not feel a little wonky. 2, this is a game that is considered to be hardcore. So if you're expecting to literally fall to an enemy, you're not going to carry the same items and you are going to lose your levels. There are some ways to go ahead and negate what you lose, though it might be hard to balance out what you want to go ahead and store in a chest. However, we're going to be going ahead and talking about the positives and of course the negatives. Naturally, when you do load up into the game, you are introduced to this tutorial here. You pretty much get a glance of what the entire game is about. Now, I am a huge fan of just pixelated RPG games, or just in general, in a sense, an MMO or an RPG. I'm a huge fan of those, and I will play those off of my YouTube channel. Very rarely will I ever stream it or make videos on unless I really enjoy it. The positive of this is if you really enjoy RPG games in general, you'll definitely like this one. However, with the negative side of this is they still have to iron out a ton of things. Now, naturally, because this just released and it is considered to be an alpha, I don't expect a flawless release. Though the developers are working very hard on fixing what's going on with the game, and they're working pretty fast. I do enjoy the fact that they are being very communicative towards what they're doing, and also including a roadmap within their Discord server. So as you can tell, you're pretty much seeing everything that's going on. And yes, you will have to fight enemies in general that throw projectiles from every single corner that you can think of, and it is your objective to pretty much avoid them and not lose your health. That permadeath is going to be a major throwback for a lot of players that are not used to something like this. Let's go ahead and fast forward to the very beginning and the spawn point of the town. Now, I want you guys to go ahead and pay attention to my map. This is basically your entire thing, which you can zoom in and out, whether you want to go ahead and use the plus or the negative sign, or even your scroll wheel on your mouse. There's going to be a section on your very right, which will have something called a perlock. Now, this is something that is really, really important, and it is imperative that you guys actually utilize this as soon as you get something very good. And you might be a little worried that you might end up losing inside of one of the raids in the overworld section right over here. Now, it's definitely recommended if you guys go ahead and utilize this when you have a copy of something or something that's just a little under what you're currently using. Right now, I do have a coral staff, which is something that is and was a legendary drop that I ended up getting yesterday. I do have something else, which is a shadow dagger, which I might go ahead and put inside of the box just in case, because I've already came close to pretty much dying a few times and I'm just a little cautious right now. So we're going to go ahead and showcase how this works, and you just drag and you drop. That's also something that you're going to have to really get used to, is dragging and dropping items, especially if you go into a loot menu, you have to drag and drop. Now, before you go over to the overworld section, you're going to notice this little area right here. Number 1, there's cosmetics that you can go ahead and purchase with Robux, or even supplies, vouchers, stuff like that, or even boosts. Keys. If you feel like you need extra space in that chest that I just showed you guys, it is going to be the Vault Slots voucher. Though personally, I would say get a feel for the game first, and if it is something that you'd really enjoy, investing in stuff like this might be smart in the future. Of course, you could go ahead and purchase health potions or even mana potions. I would find these to be more or less an emergency purchase. I would buy these only if I were to be inside of like a higher tier section and I'm not getting any more health or mana potion drops, which you will need a ton of those, by the way. Just an FYI, you're going to be needing a lot of health potions and a lot of mana potions, and we'll go ahead and get into that right now. Okay, so after you are able to teleport into the overworld, you're able to go ahead and utilize this little mini map, which is at the very right top of the corner. Any of those yellow icons that you see that are kind of moving around, they look like teardrops, those are actual players. So if at any point, if you want to go ahead and teleport to a specific person, you can actually go ahead and click on teleport and you'll immediately go exactly where they are. Though I would heed warning though, if you do decide to teleport, teleport on somebody, kind of get ready for them to be completely bombarded by a ton of enemies. So now that we actually teleported on somebody, you can kind of notice that there is a lot of stuff going on right now. So I have to pretty much watch my health, watch my mana, and make sure that the other player does not fall. If they end up falling, then that's where I have to end up retreating. This section over here is a little bit more difficult than what I anticipated originally, so this area is not one of my favorites. Anything that throws like arrows or they're mages pretty much, they do a lot of damage, especially when they are in groups. By this time, you can actually tell that I already utilized every single one of my health potions, and I'm going to end up using all of my mana potions. I do have an Ankh, which allows me to heal myself, but it's still not going to be enough to take on what's currently surrounding me. If at any point you end up getting into a situation where you don't have anywhere to go, freaking out, and you have absolutely nothing around you and you're low health, the letter R on your keyboard will save you. It will teleport you right back into town and you will not lose anything. It won't count as a death. It won't count as anything. You'll just end up teleporting and you have to pretty much travel all the way back to where you were. Now, if you're in a situation where you need a ton of mana and you need a ton of health potions, what I would really suggest is don't really go to an area where you're already struggling to farm those. Stay in the first section. I see those dropped way more often, and two, you can end up defeating a ton of enemies at once if you're in an easier area. The drops for weapons, armor, stuff like that are not going to be good, but we're not going after that. We're going after the mana and the health potions. Once you have enough, you can go ahead and pretty much explore wherever you want to explore around the map. Now, what's really nice about this is you do have a quest system right over here, right next to your map. I would definitely work on this if you're struggling to get experience points. You get experience points by defeating the enemies, but on top of it, if you do complete something out, you also get more experience based on what you're doing. What's even better is if you do specific ones, you actually get stat points based on that tier. So for Beach Boss Slayer 3, if I were to defeat 11 beach bosses, then I can either choose the following: 2 attack or 3 dexterity. Now, the dexterity and attack are 2 different things, and that's for another video. Same thing goes with the Mermaid Cove Explorer: 3 vitality and 2 dexterity, choosing between the 2. Now, in the account section within the game, there is an area for stats, so you can see where everything is placed based on your choosing, but it is going to be coming soon, so we're not able to actually keep track of what we're doing currently with the stats, but I'm pretty sure in my mind I already know what I'm actually going for. It's a matter of how you guys are going to play through. There is another section too as well. If you have a character slot right over here, you can actually purchase multiple ones. So you're not only dedicatedly tied to only one character. Again, this would only be beneficial if you play this game a ton and there's different classes that you want to go ahead and build yourself. I would see this being a huge benefit. Otherwise, if you're just going to play this as one character, then obviously you would play as just the one character. Now I'm going to go ahead and go over the negative stuff. Now, I'm just only going to go ahead and do this because for me, specifically, it's going to be short and brief. So there is a bit of a optimization issue where if you're in a large server with a ton of people throwing VFX around and everything, it seems to lag the server. And this can be an issue, especially if you're playing and you end up getting killed by a random projectile, which it has happened already with another friend. Unfortunately though, unless this is fixed, there might not be a lot of people that are going to be a huge fan of that, especially if they're looking at the FPS and they're like, what the heck is happening? And they die to something dumb, basically. I wouldn't say this one is particularly a negative thing, though I know people might get tired of something repetitive, even though that this is supposed to be theoretically something repetitive. You have a ginormous map and you have to shmup. What we like to call those is a shoot 'em up game. Now, not many people are huge fans of that, even though that they know what they're walking into playing this game. It is going to be repetitive because you do have to level up, you do have to collect loot, but I guess some players respectively do want some spice when it comes to a style of a game like this, which to me, I mean, it's completely valid. I understand. So I'm used to playing games like this in general, so having to do the same thing over and over and over again, I'm already used to, though not many people are going to be used to a system like that. The next thing is enemy scaling. Let's say you're exploring and you kind of overexplore just a little tiny bit. One wrong step might land you to restarting all over again. And this doesn't just include the bosses, because everybody should be very well prepared before they even do a boss or a raid of any kind. But we're talking about in general. If you go beyond the beach, beyond the forest, beyond the deep forest, those are the areas that can change very quickly. I know a lot of people out there might be complaining just a little tiny bit about how the scaling works. Again, this kind of just falls into you might just die to something stupid. But again, if you are in an area that you should not be in, immediately hit the reset button. Or you could just Alt F4, you can leave. You will not lose anything. It will not penalize you or anything like that. There's ways to negate what you're in, and if you're in a pickle, hit R, it'll teleport you back home. All the other negative things are very minute, like repetitive enemy sounds, repetitive little things. I don't personally find anything that's detrimental for me to set me back and just say I'm never playing this game again. I'm already, again, for the 50th time, I'm already used to playing games just like this, and two, RPGs, MMOs, stuff like that, you get very used to the formula. Think right now what I was currently into not that long ago was Path of Exile, and yes, the system is going to always be the same formula. You have to grind, 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 and grind. If you're not used to anything like this, then of course something like this is going to be a negative. Of course, with all the bugs that are currently happening in the game, then it's totally understandable if you guys want to go ahead and wait. Now, with all of the negative aspects that I could think that maybe people might have a gripe with, let's go ahead and talk about the positive things. Now, if you are a huge fan of anything that might be a shmup, RPG, MMO, something different on Roblox, you might really like this game. Visually, of course, this is definitely something that is not normally done on Roblox, so I appreciate the design quality of this game. It actually reminds me of another game called Realm of the Mad God. If that's where the original inspiration came from to create this game, then that's absolutely amazing, because if people are really into Roblox, such as children, teens, adults, whatever it may be, and they want to play something like this on Roblox, I think this is a phenomenal way to introduce them to something like this. Now, the development team for this game is extremely vocal on what they're doing, especially when it came to a lot of the fixes. Everybody's well aware this game released maybe perhaps a little too early, and they expected a little bit more, which I completely understand. However, I also have to look at it a standpoint of it being an alpha stage, so everything that we're seeing right now, we're currently playing in alpha. We're not in beta, we're in alpha. So keep that in mind when you are playing this game, and I do appreciate them actually speaking about doing the fixes, adding more. Nowadays, you don't see that really on Roblox, especially when it comes to games. You might be left in the dark, especially when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So the fact that they're doing all of this is a huge bonus on the game. Now, I do have the music muted inside of this video for copyright reasons, because I'm not sure if I might get striked for it or not, but the music is actually pretty cool in the game as well. Design-wise, everything again is just, you can pretty much see everything. I like it when it looks like this, rather than your standardized 3D Roblox character. Doesn't even feel like I'm playing Roblox right now at the moment until I actually see a Robux purchase sign. I could see this game having a huge amount of potential, especially in Roblox. Again, this might not be everybody's cup of tea because of the difficulty of it, but that's fine. They can create their very own community for players out there that are huge fans of games just like this. It reminds me, one, of like old school Pokemon games, such as Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Crystal, Gold, Silver, such as that. Especially with the water. The looting is great when it comes to pretty much getting an enemy down and you see the little loot bag. I don't know, I like collecting stuff, so maybe that's perhaps why. Two, I cannot wait for them to add the stat system, because then this is where we can go ahead and create our very own builds. And I cannot wait for that. We can actually keep track of what we're doing within the game, and the anticipation of making sure that you always have to constantly make sure that your health is not too low, and micromanaging everything around it, so you're constantly always on eggshells, and I like that aspect of it. Maybe it's just me, but I do like doing stuff like this. It keeps the mind busy. So my personal advice is, if you're coming into the game first brand new, look around, but don't look around too much to where you wander off to a point where you end up instantly dying to an enemy. Tip number 2 is, do not get too attached to your character, especially if you're brand new. 3 is get used to finding a lot of mana and health pots. Collect as you go, and once you get to a certain state, start storing what you don't necessarily need at the very moment. Just in case if something were to happen, you're going to have to end up regrinding all of your levels once again. But depending on how you are grinding, this should make the process so much more easier if you already have stored loot in here that you could go ahead and just pick up and restart all over again. Don't get attached to items. You're going to eventually find items that are better than the ones that you're currently using. I know this game just released not that long ago, just the other day, so this game is still freshly released, so expect bugs. And if anything, expect changes. I can't wait to see what they're going to be doing with this game. Again, I've been waiting for this game for quite some time now, so I'm actually really excited to see what they do with this. And that's pretty much it for this video. Okay, bye!